Okay, good evening to everybody. Can you hear me? So given that we have a full house and it is very invigorating to speak to a lot of humans and chairs, it is something that we have taken very with a lot of interest in, and the three of us, and thank you to the SIA for organizing and bringing in the word disaster into this discussion. So you must have heard a lot about space and various other deep tech materials and deep tech things about space. How it's connected to disaster risk reduction. I will dwell for 2-3 minutes on how disaster risk reduction works. So in a very simple way, there are 5 stages. There is prevention, then mitigation is risk reduction before a disaster happens. Then the third stage is preparedness for a disaster. That if an earthquake happens, what you will do. And then the fourth stage is response, which all of us see on our televisions when NDRR and the security forces are going to such places to help out. And finally is the reconstruction. So this is one axis, one dimension. The second dimension is that all 5 have to be studied using space, your eye in the sky, your meteorological instruments, your various instruments on the ground, and that's all the hazards are your y-axis, the second dimension. Then the third dimension is the mass of institutions, government institutions. I mean, we are very happy to have Dr. Aggarwal here, who is the head of the Northeast Space Application Center. He has been a very long time scientist with ISRO, several years in the Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, and he is also the head of the Indian Society for Remote Sensing. So we are a very exalted personality in our presence. He has great experience, and I have learned a lot from him in my tenure at the National Disaster Mitigation, National Disaster Management Authority. So the third dimension is not the tens but the hundreds of government agencies, and each of these government agencies having hundreds to maybe 1,000 scientists of high caliber. So that is the fourth dimension as to how to bring all of them together, how to bring all the management of all these 5 stages of all hazards together. So this is a 3-dimensional problem. And now, to our right, we have Mr. Vibhore Sharma, who started off as a technologist, a simple technical guy, who then suddenly moved into the world of venture capital. He runs a company called Capital 2B. He runs an $80 million fund. His interest in startups, that to deep tech startups, is very high. And for several years now, I have been learning a lot about startups from him. So the fourth dimension is the private sector. So the fourth dimension is this entire 3 dimensions has to shift for each company. They focus on one type of the 5 problems, or one type of hazard, or several. It's a huge mass of a coordination problem. So at National Disaster Management Authority, we are basically policy people, so we look at coordination. So we started a little thing called the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction, which we call CODER for short. And that CODER is the one that tries to coordinate between all agencies as equals. So in this general backdrop, what is the use and what is the current use? What are the gaps? What are the challenges? So we divided our session into 4 parts. First part is a discussion on gaps and challenges. Second part of 15 minutes, we will take you to a very small 8-slide presentation to show you some live issues in disaster risk reduction. And the third part, we will discuss new tech and how new tech can go into space and resolve this issue to quite an extent. And last 15 minutes will be for questions. So now we go to Dr. Aggarwal with a simple question for which I will request him to give us an expansive answer. The question is, what are the gaps that you see in space economic system in India as of today, and what do you think are the government's ways of dealing with all those gaps?
Thank you, Shri Safi. First of all, I would like to thank organizers SIA-India, especially Shri for inviting me for this session. And I would also like to thank Moderator or Chair of the session, Shri Safi Ahsan for nicely setting the tone of this session. So when we are talking about the space ecosystem and what are the gaps currently we have with respect to the disaster risk reduction, I will divide it into 4 categories. First, we have to think, during the disaster, we need immediate data. Whether we have the sufficient satellite to get the data, that too immediately. So for that, we have to look into what kind of satellite data is available. Now, in disaster, we have to look into not only that satellite is available or not, the resolution of the satellite data is also very, very important. So, for example, if there is a flood, so we wanted to measure the area of the flooded area, then we should have a data which gives the large swath. Special resolution is not important. But then, simultaneously, we should know the damage assessment, and for that, we should have a high resolution satellite data. So whether it is available or not, and that too for now. So the biggest problem in gap areas currently we have is the availability of the satellite data real time. So for that, the solution is we should have a constellation of the satellites. One satellite is not sufficient to help us or to get the data every day or every hour. We should have a constellation of the satellite. So that is number 1. Second is when we are talking about a disaster, so already it was spoken to Mr. Safi, that there are different phases. So for that, fine, we have disaster, but prevention phase is also very, very important. And for that, we should understand the disaster, the severity of the disaster, the frequency of the disaster. So we should have a continuous data. And so that we should have many satellites, and not only that, we should be able to get the data continuously. It is not like that satellite is available now, after 1 year it is not available. It should be continuous, mapping is required. Third important aspect which I have seen, especially in Northeast region, because I belong to Northeastern Space Application Center, which is a center by Department of Space. Whenever there is a disaster, the first thing which is affected is the communication. All mobile towers are down. So how to get the information? In fact, I can quote one example. In Ahsan in 2022, the district commissioner of that district, she was unable to connect the people for 2 days when this heavy flood came there. 2 days. So how space technology can help in resolving this gap? So for that, answer is we should have we should have a high throughput satellites. And of course, ISRO is looking after that. We have already GSAT 29 satellite. So what it does basically, that you will get the broadband services to satellite. So terrestrial mobile tower is not required for that. So what happens, it is linked to the satellite, and anybody should have a disk like, that Tata Sky kind of disk you can have, and you can get the broadband services in that area. So during a disaster, you will not be disconnected to the people. Another possibility which I foresee in future, I don't know whether it will be possible or not, drone-based telecommunication during disaster. This is another possibility which really people can look into it. So this is the third one. And finally, of course, nowadays, if satellite data is not available, then there is one very good option we have, and that is the drone techniques. You should have a different kind of drones, and drone is not like that in disaster you cannot reach. We at NESAC, we have a fleet of drones. We have quadcopter, hexcopter, we have a tethered copter also, which can fly up to even 8 hours during disasters. All these things, even petrol-based copters we have, they can fly up to 2.5 hours, they can cover 5 kilometers, even you can give the medicine during disaster. So drone technology is coming in a big way to really help and to complement the satellite technology in disaster risk reduction. So these are the 4 aspects I thought initially I should talk about it, later on we may discuss further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vibhore. So we now go to Mr. Vibhore Sharma to ask him that these 4 gaps that Dr. Vibhore mentioned, in drones, we have seen that there is a huge scale up because there is private industry which is available, and private sector investors and people like yourself must invest in drone companies. So, what about the others? What about the other gaps that you see that the private sector is seeing from the venture capital hat that you have? And how do you think these challenges should be met?
Thank you, Mr. Sir. Glad to be here. I think the biggest challenge is the offtake of the technologies being produced or developed by these startups. Single point of failure is the biggest challenge, because when you build technology, for which only the government is going to pick up the contracts, it's very hard to sort of go to venture capital firms and say, you know what, we've got the government as our biggest customer, or the only customer actually in this case, which we'll talk about it later. It becomes very hard for private money to flow in for various reasons. One is it limits the size of the market. When venture capital people are investing money, they want to look at the outcomes, right? Multiple fold outcomes that they expect. If you look at some of these scenarios where these applications are involved, the size of the market is very limited. The customers, especially for space, India is limited to just two big, tremendous institutions in the country. Nothing more than that. So I think forging public-private partnerships there to figure out how you can carve out a pathway for private players to contribute and play a role in the whole disaster risk prevention strategy is one dimension. Second, I think is a simpler problem to solve in my view is formulating a problem statement for private companies, startups to find solutions to. A lot of the companies, especially in the deep tech space, and that's my learning, go solution first. Right? But if you look at the problem definition, things become far more consequential. Drones have been built over a while because when the drones started getting built in China and elsewhere, everybody said we should build drones. And use cases are now being looked at. Right? But if you purpose build drones, which we're now figuring out, hybrid drones which can go large distances, large altitudes, a specific use case and purpose-driven drones. So if you have specific problems like that, which could be defined and solved for, then there's a larger focus that researchers and entrepreneurs would put in solving those problems, knowing the scale and the quantum of the problem.
Thank you, Vibhore. So we'll pick up on that a little later. The two big things that you mentioned is one, that there is only one buyer, the government. And if the government is not buying, then there's no market, so then the startups have no revenue model to go after. And then you're saying a very interesting thing, that people are basically building a solution but not looking at what the real problem is. So that's an excellent point. So I think we lead up to the second part of our discussion, where we have a small presentation. Is it possible for the presentation to come up on the screen? Is there somebody dealing with the presentation thing? Yeah. So till it comes up, I'll just tell you about those 8 slides. Yeah, this is it. Can I get it? Okay. So, yeah, we can see. So, this is just to show you one specific hazard, a disaster. That is, and by means of this disaster, we're trying to bring to your notice that there is so much scope for technology, startups, private sector, and hundreds of ideas can be generated from the kind of disasters that this country faces. So Kedarnath 2013, when lots of people died, was a disaster that came out of a glacial lake outburst flow. So there was a lake called Chorabari Lake, which was a non-risky glacial lake above Kedarnath, which due to heavy torrential rain, an avalanche or a landslide happened, and the lake burst open, and all its waters flooded Kedarnath in 2013. So this was the first big disaster of glacial lake in recent times in India. Now we come to the other big one that happened in Sikkim on the 3rd of October night. So before that, I would just like to go back a step to when in the beginning we mentioned about the CODA, the Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction. So when that disaster happened, we got all the agencies together and we started talking to each other that what can GSI contribute, what can ISRO contribute, what can the Northeast Space Application Center contribute. Every organization was ready with lots of solutions. It was just bringing them all together. So that is what we are currently doing. This is a live thing that the India's disaster management community is doing. So I just wanted to give you a little window into this. So these are the number of high-risk lakes that we've identified. And mind you, there are 7,500 high-risk lakes in India. 7,500 glacial lakes in India, which are above 0.25 hectares in size, and many are growing in size. We have identified about nearly 200 of these lakes as high risk. They are in these 4 states and union territories. So you can see that Arunachal, there's HP, JNK, and Sikkim have a lot of such lakes. Arunachal has a lot of lakes, but we'll show that in the maps. So now we go to the maps. So this is the layer of glacial lakes, 28,000 of them in the Indian Himalayan region. There are 5 countries in the region. India has 7,500. 1/4. Overlay this with your satellite imagery and the political layer, and this is the map of Sikkim. Now we will just go deeper and zoom into Sikkim. So if you see, these are the pink ones are the glacial lakes in Sikkim. Not all of them are high risk, only about 30 to 35 are there, which are high risk. However, look at the size of glacial lakes in just that northern district of Sikkim. Now look at the top 2 on the left. It's the second one on the right which blew out on the 3rd of October. We will get a close up. Yeah. So look at how close it is to the LAC with our northern neighbor. So the one on the right, that's the South Lonak Lake, that is the one that eventually burst. This is the geospatial layer overlaid, and we remove the critical boundary. This is the lake. So this was a 3.5 kilometer long lake, west to east, and half kilometer in width. Now after the glacial lake outburst which happened, what happened was, if you see on the top left, that mass of rock fell into the lake and the lake burst out on the right side. So the yellow line is the earlier boundary of the lake, 169 hectares as measured by ISRO and NRSC and ISRO. And the blue line is where the lake is currently. So it just burst out of its seat. Why did it burst out? If you see, this is a high resolution satellite imagery that ISRO provided us. Between A and B is 6 football fields long. So the slope failure that happened was of 6 football fields long, just fallen, splashed into the lake. So you can imagine the damage it caused. ISRO has calculated that 55 million cubic meters of water was released instantly. So that is the disaster that can happen in the high-risk lakes. With global warming and the manner in which 2023 was the hottest year in the world, we need to be really worried. Now, who is telling us it is only ISRO that is watching these lakes? And Central Water Commission is watching these lakes. Is there any private enterprise watching these lakes and informing the state that here is a business opportunity? Please invest in this when we go forward. Is there somebody organizing expeditions regularly and being paid for it by the state or even by CSR and private enterprise to go and look at all the moraine dams around, that are they weak or are they not? There is not. So there's a huge opportunity for startups and private sector in this sphere. Now we come to another lake. It's called Shakocho. This is also in Sikkim. It is very high risk for the reason that there is no outlet. So as the glacier is melting, the water level is rising and the pressure on the weak moraine dam is becoming higher and higher. So this is the equipment that was planted there in September of this last year. And this equipment, imagine the scope for early automated weather monitoring stations in the private sector. Today, it was when we were running our coder, it was very difficult to find anybody who had this equipment ready and working and with a proof of concept to take it to 16,000 feet, plant it there and have it work in extreme temperatures from minus 30 to plus 20. Not there. So CPAC is building it, ISRO is providing the SATs, the solar panels are coming from another government organization. Huge opportunity for the private sector. This is the data we get on a daily basis, 250 times a day from that equipment. Now the temperatures are rising since January, earlier they were falling. So imagine the invaluable insight you get from this. This is the lake on 13th of December. Every morning we take a picture of both ends of the lake. Imagine what scientists can do when either private or government if they start analyzing through the digital part of this imagery what is the change in the lake height. They can do it, it can be done. So, and these images are coming, they're fairly good resolution images. 1 month, 2 months later, it was a frozen lake. By March, it was really frozen, and everybody, all expeditions say they're very beautiful lakes, but they're very, very dangerous. And by June 23, which is 2 days ago, all the snow is gone and the lake level will start rising. So imagine the amount of opportunities available for the private industry to get in. Government can only do so much. This is another huge thing which we see, which only I've seen ISRO and Dr. Aggarwal's former organization IIRS, Indian Remote Sensing, working on, and that is interferometry. So this is one image. The A part is the one that collapsed into the lake. So if you see the interferometric image, it's a simple analysis. It's not simple, it's a very complex exercise. But it is an analysis comparing two remote sensing images, and you will be shocked to hear that these are Sentinel images which are openly available in the NESAC website. So comparing two Sentinel images 12 days apart, they were able to tell, if you can see the wave-like movement in part A, they were able to tell that this slope was already shaking. And a millimeter difference can be told with this technology. Imagine the potential for landslides, imagine the potential for glacial waves. And we have about 11,000 susceptible hazard-oriented landslide polygons in India. 11,000. And we have 200 high-risk lakes out of 7,500. In the future, we need to have one weather station, one early warning system on every lake, on every one of these 11,000. Just look at the opportunity, and I find it amazing that not many people are working towards it. And this is the post-disaster image where the A part had fallen into the lake. Now the broader picture. There is an organization called CEW, which has taken data from IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, which is a government of India organization, which puts out that data in the open domain, and you can just apply through an email and they give you that data. They went to Tehsil level and they did a simple analysis of last 10 years of monsoon data compared to the 3 decades before that. So 1 decade last, before that 3 decades. So this is the OND rainfall. So OND is October, November, December, when you have the northeast monsoon. So at that time, normally Uttarakhand and Himachal get a fair bit of rain during the OND season. However, if you see the dark red and the light red, that's Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, they are getting drier during those 3 months. And that is the time where forest fires start in Uttarakhand and Himachal, where all of us feel that we are in winters. However, that is when the forest fires have started. In the last 4-5 years, there have been big forest fires. All of you saw it on television this year what happened there. So it is because dryness. So if there's dryness, your fuel load of pine is available and there is heat. So all 3 combine and give you a trinity which sets forest on fire. So this is something which could be a changing pattern. It is very dangerous in the sense that if you have dry in Uttarakhand and Himachal in winters, you may not have forests 20 years down the road. Then look at Maharashtra, look at Rajasthan, excess rain in the last decade. Look at Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, excess rain during the northeast monsoon, changing patterns. Worth studying, anybody could have studied this, but this is something which requires a lot of enterprise, and a lot can be done as to how to deal with agriculture and crops with this change. And this is the JJAS, which is June, July, August, September, the main monsoon. Look at how Rajasthan and Gujarat are. So Rajasthan may not remain a desert for long. And look at what's happening in northeast UP, in northern Bihar, and look at Ahsan. This is your regular monsoon. Last decade has been very deficient compared to before that. So look at how this change is, whether it's climate change or not, attribution science is still not reached that level, but this is what needs to be looked at. The red line is where we were in 2023, and hottest year on the earth in the last 150. And this is sea surface temperatures. The orange line is 2023 and the black line is 2024, not to be outdone. 2024 is racing ahead of 2023. So this is how bad things are. So the higher the sea surface temperature, the higher the precipitation, the clouds that gather, the higher the strength of the cyclones, and the higher the precipitation of the coastal areas. And finally, forest fires. So a lot of the satellite imagery is used by the Forest Research Survey of India for marking out the forest fires, giving early warnings. And this is a map. Look at what's happening in Myanmar with regard to forest fires. Yeah, that's it. So I will now take this discussion to our friend Dr. Aggarwal, who is basically, I would request him to tell us that what is your expectation of the private industry filling the gaps that we just showed to prevent such disasters.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Safi, Rizvi sir. Very nicely you have shown that how things are changing actually. And you will be surprised to know that before 2013, when we were talking about the glove, I started working in the field of glove I think in 90s only. And that time we thought glove is because there is a huge marine dam and water is increasing because of the water pressure. Lake burst is there and you will have a downstream flood. But after 2013 we realized something else is happening because of the climate change. What is happening? If you look at the Kedarnath, the disaster, sir has already told about the Choravali Lake. 3 things had happened on the 3-4 days before. Heavy snowfall was there. Number 1. Number 2, suddenly temperature increase was there. Third one is heavy rainfall was there. There was no snowfall, heavy rainfall. Because of that, some melt has happened at the upstream of the Choravali Lake. So some avalanche has happened, some glacier mass has broken, it came down to the lake. We had a glove. Otherwise, Choravali Lake was quite a stable lake. It was not supposed to be there. So there is a possibility those lakes which are even we feel it is okay, safe. Tomorrow it may happen sudden that block will broke down. It will come to the lake and you will have a glove. Same thing has happened in this South Mumbai lake also. You might have forgotten, but there was another event has happened in what you call the Rizvi river in Uttarakhand, where a big block of the glacier it fall down to the river and it melted and created a havoc in the Rizvi and Vishnu project. That project was totally devastated, finished actually after that. So these new challenges are there. So what I want to tell here, when we are talking about the glacier lake, now after this scenario of climate change, anything can happen. For that, government organization cannot do everything. Now private people have to come into this area and really look. We are not supposed to be doing only the severe dangerous lake. All lakes have to be measured. We should have AWS to all 1600 lakes or some 1,000 lakes, whatever you do. We should have instrument in all marine dams all across the country. For that, we need help of industry. And these are the gap area where really industry can look into it. But then, there is a question you may ask, that industry, they will look into the profit. So, going to one only, like one instrument and like 1600 instrument is not, matter of survival of industry. But I want to here's so very nice picture of a AWS. What you see there? We have seen the solar panel. Now, solar panel, when your company or your industry is producing a solar panel, it may require for AWS, but it may also require for something else, like Swarghar, we are calling now. So, you can multiply your industry. But one instrument, one part you can get to this AWS, other parts. So, it's a, win-win situation. Government will provide you what kind of lakes are there, but you have to put the instrument. So basically, for instrumentation, industry can play a big role. That is number one. Number two, you have shown that role of SAR interferometry by understanding the displacement and movement of the rocks nearby the lakes. There also, suppose government today we don't have those type of satellite, probably industry can look into it. Industry can look at, they can have constellation of a satellite. In fact, I know there are many private companies, not from India, but from abroad. They are reaching to us. They are telling, sir, we will give you every 3 hours satellite microwave data. So there are immense opportunities are there to the private industries in this field. Not only a space system like satellites, but field instrumentation, really the private industry can play a big role. Thank you.
So, Vibhore, we go to you with that thought, that how do you see private industry currently playing out these kind of challenges, and what are the big problems that you see?
A lot of people in the private industry are not even aware that these are worthwhile problems to solve for. That is one. Second, I think the biggest problem is that some of the parts is not equal to the whole. Take you the instance of that weather monitor station. Granted, we can have solar panels, but the point is the system itself needs to withstand the temperature, the winds, the glacial movement in those areas. So you need to deploy that. It is a product plus service play, right? Because it's not just build and install, it's build, operate, and manage, right? So there's a lot of servicing and manpower required there. Unless you talk about the fact that you purpose-build drones, which have self-charging stations, you come inside the station, you charge themselves, go out, take the sensory data, come back and go back, things like this. So I think the lens has to be changed. Right now we have a monitoring station like this right now. Can this be changed to a different form factor, and so on and so forth. Second, if an average, say the price of a drone is 5, 7, 10 lakh rupees, or a station is 10 lakh rupees, you've got 7,000 lakes, out of which points of interest are only 200. That's about. Well, for venture capital, that's not a lot of money in terms of outcomes, unfortunately. Right? So how do you repurpose that money elsewhere for civilian use and so on and so forth? Third thing is, are there any grants available for people to for into these areas to build new kind of materials to the standards, to build new kind of monitoring stations and sensors and so on and so forth. But the bigger thing I think is that, and this was fascinating, what you presented. I never knew that this is how data has been looked at. The one question it begins is how much of this data is available in the open domain for people to create and generate insights out of that. If you look at the whole carbon economy, right, carbon capture, carbon credits, and so on and so forth, offsetting carbon, emission points, a lot of the startups are moving in that direction. Right? And they're using a lot of satellite data to observe emissions, and look at rate of growth of vegetation in certain areas and so on and so to offset carbon points, because they see commerce happening there, because they see the potential of trading of those carbon points for money and revenue, right? So repurposing this problem as not disaster, but evolution of the landscape. And I'll tell you, I'm thinking like that right now. When you talk about climate change, the weather systems are changing, land mass is changing, biodiversity is changing, yield per acre of crops is changing, right? What you showed right now is very interesting, that Gujarat, Rajasthan, where we farm more quenched with water and maybe fertile as well to more grains, right? So you see a situation where private companies who are doing agriculture on a massive scale change their direction and start doing crops elsewhere, even that their understanding of weather cycles is there, and weather systems is there. So I think repurposing the problem statement also will help.
Okay, thanks a lot. So essentially what you're saying is that the revenue model, the awareness, these are two very big problems. So awareness is something we can, I think, quickly resolve, and we can get together whenever there are startup conferences. Government has a lot of such conferences. We can go to them and bring these problems to them, stated in such a way that they become very clear. So like Dr. Aggarwal mentioned about the instrumentation. So the instruments, there are just 10, 11 sensors. There is a communication system and there is solar panel. And the ability to withstand, as you very correctly said, is a service issue. But the fact is that nobody will go there to service it at 16,000. It's only open 4 months a year. So it has to be a sturdy system that proof of concept. But there's huge business opportunity in Nepal, in China, in Pakistan, in the Andes, in the Rockies, in the Alps. And then that same stuff it can be used in landslide monitoring. However, the issue that you have raised for government agencies is very correct. That we need to essentially go out to the private enterprise, explain to them the problem statement, and convince them. So disaster management is a fair bit of funding. We have the 15th Finance Commission brought in a fairly large corpus of 30,000 crores for all states, and it goes directly to the states over a period of 5 years. So 30,000 crores is only for mitigation. So mitigation is risk reduction and prevention, activities like this. So there are several hazards as I mentioned earlier. So at some point, if you have a company that goes working on pressure lakes, then money will start moving towards that side. So it's something which is doable, and thank you for that idea. Any other points that you'd like to make on this?
Yeah, I think also it makes sense to sort of take a leaf from the book of the defense forces. IDEX has done tremendously well, opening the doors for startups to think of possibilities of creating solutions for the defense ecosystem. So, creating a platform or system like that where you invite startups, potential entrepreneurs to showcase their ideas, look at their problems, and think of solutions out there.
Yeah, so IDEX is definitely a good thing to start off with. And Dr. Aggarwal, do you see any changes in the relationship between government and private, where space tech is moving towards private after the space policy has opened up almost everything?
Yes, now you have a big, in fact, very big opportunity because after new space policy and new geospatial policy, and now new is remote sensing data policy, which is also there. Private industries has to play a major role, and they are playing. Right? You must have seen that in last 2 years, more than 150 startups have come up in the space sector. So especially now that the private sector could understand the importance and the benefits of the space sector, they are coming. And geospatial technology also, if I tell you, if I give you a small figure of geospatial technology, currently you will be surprised to know that our manpower requirement in geospatial industry is more than 4 lakhs in our country. You can imagine. 4 lakhs. So that much manpower is required. Geospatial technology is the area where I request, because NRSC, SAC or NESAC, they are three organizations, they are involved in geospatial technology, they are providing a solution to all government entities. But I will tell you the scope of this. Every state has different departments, maybe agriculture department, forestry department, many departments are there. Each department wanted to have a geospatial data. And not only the static data, dynamic data, means every month or every year you have to update it. And for that, geospatial industry is very, very important. That is number one. Number, other than the space technology, other than the space asset, this is the geospatial on ground. Number three, now the technology AI is coming big way. People are not interested what you may be saying like this is a forest area, this is the agriculture area, this is a road. They are interested in the informed image. Informed image means they wanted to know where deforestation is taking place. What is the what rate? Within 1 month, what is happening within 2 months. This is the information they want. They want any encroachment of the land is there or not. They want any, sanitation of the lakes or wetlands are there or not. They want any damage of the road. For that, AI is going to play a major. Government organizations are limited. Only private industry can help. In fact, I was talking to a senior officer in government of Ahsan, and he asked me only one question. You have all this technology, space technology, drone technology, everything. Can you give me a solution of a road accident so that it can be used? Now this is a big challenge. And I request industries, kindly look into such type of solution. Government is looking for such type of solution from private industries. There is a possibility. Fourth one is the drone. This is the last one which I thought I should give. Drone technology currently in India is not up to the mark if you compare with other countries. And because drone technology, we say it is flying, it is giving some information, it is not like that. You should have information on flying only. You are flying to the drone. You should get the required information then and there only. For that, private industry can play major role.
Thank you. So two interesting experiences. The need for drones, and then Mr. Vibhore also mentioned about drones. So the drone ecosystem, Government of India allowed it, and the private sector grew on it. And a lot of companies now, a lot of startups have gone into drone. So there was a lot of demand and supply. It was all iteration. One iteration, two, now we must be at iteration 900 400, 940. So only through an iterative process this drone industry has grown. You've given us a very good idea that now people are, the commercial interest is chasing carbon credits. So if they're chasing carbon credits and they want to use geospatial technology, so this is something that we need to really think about as to how we can dovetail our requirements in disaster risk reduction with carbon credits and get the private sector interested in it. So, is there any other points that you would like to make where you feel that the government needs to do more so that some more policy can be improved by which we can get much more bang for the buck from the private sector?
I think at the applied research level also, there should be promise about the fact that this is of consequence. Climate change has taken so much pride right now because people are experiencing the challenge in coverage with it. The hottest hit in Delhi NCR this year has proved that this kind of heat is not possible, right? How do you solve this? Disaster has to be, the stack line has to be recalibrated now. Because if you link this kind of hot weather to crop activity, to yield, to economics, for the farmers, for the money, for the consumers, like inflation, all of this is very big. It may not be a disaster in the true sense of the word, but it has tremendous socio-economic impact. Right? So how can you create this as a problem worth solving with commercial/economic benefits for startups, and not just wait for startups to solve for natural calamities, triggered by organic or inorganic reasons. It is mankind evolution, right? So I think that is one interesting thing that I could think of, and I don't know how that works in government, but if you re-qualify some of these problems, that is one area. Second, you said a tremendous amount of funds. So I don't know at the center of the state level, but some of these funds should be, used to create grants for people to solve specific problems, like build prototypes at least, so that you at least have people hacking their way into figuring out what could be the solution. The whole point is that, if you look at the digital software paradigm, a lot of people were able to solve a lot of problems because there was access, there was ability to create faster, and it was cheaper to do. Right? With the right set of people, with the right side of funding, to create prototypes, that's a good starting point.
Great, thank you. So a third business opportunity that I'm seeing is that of insurance. So one of the biggest ways of mitigating disasters and having funds available with you so that you can rebuild your homes and the roads and everything is insurance. However, disaster risk insurance is a fledgling industry in India. It is just about scaling up. So the use of geospatial technology in India, crop insurance is the first example 20 years ago of parametric insurance, where you don't have to, if there's a disaster, there's a drought, the company is not going to come and check each farmer's land, loss where. He's going to basically give you, if a certain threshold on a certain weather parameter has been reached, he's going to pay you nevertheless. So this parametric insurance is catching on, and now the same crop insurance scheme all over India, slowly states have started using geospatial imagery to assess whether the drought is at 50% or is it at 80% or whatever. So this is another good line which we will start thinking on, because unless the ideas and the science and the commerce doesn't come together, we won't be able to push these things forward.
That's a very good point. The key question there will be, what is the price point that you decide for the crop? Is it from the lens of the farmer, from the person in the mandi, from the end consumer? Right? Because that determines the profit margins of anybody else who is looking at the pre and post calamity data and generating with insights for the insurers and the reinsurers.
So in insurance, what happened was that over these 15-20 years, they started off with mistakes, and they're possibly on version 7, and they have reached a level where the farmers are also happy, and the insurance companies are also happy. It's a conglomerate which does it. It's a very good example. A lot of case studies have been made on it. So we're trying to scale that up to other hazards, other states, and all that. So we have about 10 minutes left now. So if we have any questions, we can take those. Otherwise, we can do one final round of points from our two experts, and then we can move on. Yes, sir.
Mr. Aggarwal had spoken about Asfi's Chief Minister or Secretary saying that the road accident, how we can prevent. What about avalanches? What about the fire? Amazon, leave alone it's global problem. So where there the space space technology or satellite technology can help, because that would be interesting and it will expand the sphere to huge extent. If you see, like you said, avalanches are there, floods are there, and the fire, which is a disaster, and in the next 20 years the forest could be like you just said. So what's the solution for that, and how private sector can participate and make revenue of it? Without revenue, neither the government nor the private sector will participate.
Yeah, so you rightly told actually when we are talking about the disaster, so forest fire is another very big thing actually, and now it is happening all across the globe, not only in that tropical areas, but in temperate region also you are having forest fire. It's a big problem. But other than that, landslide is also there. So everywhere you can, but only thing is try to understand. I think in our country, the biggest problem is there is a communication gap between government organization and private organization. try to understand, government organization want the private sector should come, but then how? For example, some government, let us say agriculture department, okay, they wanted to know like what is the crop acreage. Now, one government organization cannot do. What is the damage of the crop damage because of the flood, because of some extreme events, okay? So first, private company has to look into the problems. I specifically quote this example of the road accident because somebody asked me, because that it's the role of the private company, they have to understand what is the problem for the people. Because government is working for the people. You have to think, and then you have to first showcase, take the pilot study, showcase that. Now, geofencing is another thing which is coming up. Suppose somewhere some disease is there, you will get an alert on your mobile that don't go to this road, there is this disease. It's a new technology, So that's where private company now seriously, before profit, this is my suggestion, before profit, please look into the problems of the people. Then, if you find this problem is related to that particular department, for example, disease, then talk to the health department. Tell them our technologies can really help you. Similarly, avalanche. Talk to the concerned department of avalanche. Okay. Tell them this is the solution. You have to first find out the solutions. You see all across the world, all big private companies, first they are spending in R&D, then only they are coming to the market. So this is lacking in our country. Thank you. Yes. Sir.
Incidentally, I was associated with the creation of NDEM database with Dr. Bhattacharya, who was the advisor. I was director for disaster management program at ISRO. What I saw from the presentation made by Mr. Rizvi is probably not much progress has happened with respect to analytics. What I feel is, if you start using the cloud technology for exploiting the full power of the database residing at NDEM, National Database for Emergency Management, as well as to bring in newer tools with respect to analytics, storage, using ancillary data, and creating digital twins, forecasting what could happen in the future, simulate different scenarios and all that. And that would also help us, probably larger participation of private into the whole game of disaster management and studying the environment.
So, thank you for pointing it out. And this is, we are actually, you should have been, sir, up on this panel, because to be part of founder of NDEM, I must inform the audience here that NDEM, National Disaster Emergency Management Board, is a massive exercise in coordination. And the scientists and the administrative people who sat together in ISRO and NRSC, Ministry of Home Affairs, they got together and they got lots of government agencies to pool their data together, to bring all their data onto one platform. Now let me tell you, this is an easy thing to do in the private sector, but it is a next impossible thing to do in the public sector. And for that, sir, I must really give you a lot of gratitude. Now, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, NDEM version 5 is being inaugurated by ISRO. And version 5 is where everything is being taken. So if anybody goes to their website today on NDEM version 4.0, you will be not just amazed, you will be shocked to see the amount of material available on that and the manner in which it is being put up. A lot of digital elevation values are now slowly getting in there. So it is an amazing thing that it's very difficult to say an equivalent in this country on the government side of NDA. Very difficult. And since I've been working on the coordination piece in disaster management, it's very difficult thing to do. So congratulations to you. Lot of way to go, and 5.0 is something that will eventually take that place. Thank you. Any other question? Please start. Yeah. Yes.
So, just if you see the European way of looking the disasters. So they have made the common platforms like Copernicus and Euronet platforms, the multi-hazard display. So what we are looking here is the private organization involvement is not completely like revenue based, so they cannot get the profit. So where we have to involve our requirement, we have to clearly estimate, and we have to bring all the data sets, involvement of private organization, and we have to make the tool. So that is the lacking what we see. But if you see in the Europe, so they made the system, government involvement is more with the help of the private organization and bringing all the data sets and making the real disaster management. Even public also can view that process. So like that platform we have to bring in India. That's what we feel.
So that's a very good point. And what you are raising is that the merging of the effort of government and private sector is how Copernicus and others are moving forward. In India, the example of NDMA is, yes, I agree with you, primarily government effort, primarily government organizations bringing their data together, whether it's CWC or IIT or NISC, and more of private is required. So you are very correct in what you are saying. However, you and I cannot wish it overnight. So we have to do it incrementally. And in its incremental form, we are going to do our coordination, do our meetings. That is why we meet people like Mr. Vibhore regularly, and we connect with Dr. Aggarwal and the likes of the Indian scientific community. On both sides I have seen. I'm a police officer, I'm not a scientist. Occasionally people make a mistake and call me Dr. Safi as if and I would have loved it if SIA had made the same mistake. But the point is that I'm not a PhD, I'm not a doctor. However, I've seen the scientists of the Indian scientific community in the public sector. They are just fascinating. The amount of information, amount of assessment, analysis, understanding of the oldest and the latest technology and where we need to go is all here. And the same stories on the private sector side. Whether Mr. Vibhore of the venture capital side, investment side, or technologists like him, you go to any professor in a private university or a semi-government university, the professor will give you all the sentiment and everything, using it as its child's play. So, bringing it together is a real story. Coordination of those 4 dimensions which I mentioned at the beginning is a real story. We are at it, or although very long high value status in hand. So let's hope we get somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander from Nova Space. So first of all, thank you for the people taking care of disasters, because it can happen anytime, anywhere, and I have been myself engaged in disaster response for earthquake, floods, and so on. You were defining the mission. You were even defining a vision, because it is a global global problem that can be explained. But at the end of the day, what is the strategy? And I think there we are missing something. There is a gap in strategy, because a strategy for an investor needs to be a sustainable strategy. And that's the first thing which is happening here. If we investing as a startup in this and that, how can we make the return the investor is looking for? And with all disasters, with all disaster agencies, they're living to a certain extent on donations. Unfortunately, these donations come after disaster happens. So maybe if money will flip from spending money after disasters in avoiding disasters, that would be a possibility, but that also needs to be done in a certain framework. And that framework again again needs to be supported by governments. This is not an Indian, let's say, challenge alone, but of course, as you have having such a large country with all kinds of different levels, you know about the challenges. But how can the government implement a strategy that allows sustainability on the industry side, especially if this is a private company which is not owned by somebody who already made this money and he believes he can do that for good. Yeah? This is not the idea of the industry to do things for good. It's doing things for good and money.
Thank you. So we have to wind up, but I will make a quick response. So over the period of say 2 decades, in '99, the Odisha had a super cyclone. It was a lot of people died. And from that day till now, we have reached a stage where our early warning systems on cyclones and the cyclone track in which we is headed gives you 7 days advance notice. There's a lot of disaster resilience built into infrastructure, power, roads, and various things. Cyclones come and go, and there are very few fatalities. So a lot of movement has happened, a lot of R&D has happened to prevent disasters and to reduce the risk by making your infrastructure resilient. And then, as I mentioned earlier, insurance is also being important. However, the piece about how to encourage startups, something on defense has done, what Prime Minister's initiative of the Startup India, which has put in a lot of money with SIGBI, which is, I think 80% of it has been invested in startups. A lot of startups have taken advantage of that. However, that needs to come into the disaster piece as well. So thank you for your comment. And I will now like to end. I'm sorry, ma'am, we'll have to end because I got a very dangerous whisper in my ear. So thank you, Dr. Pawan, for all your erudite comments, and Vibhore for all your different comments. We don't hear such criticism. Never say you approve it. Oh, we can. So gender sensitivity is here, ma'am. Rest of it. Ma'am, we could take this. You can come.
Thank you for such an insightful session. My question is on what the Vibhore sir pointed out, that how local communities or common man can utilize geospatial technology to be more aware about how they can contribute in politics, like especially in the border areas like Sikkim, how the all just happened. If the local community is aware about this kind of technology and they're constantly monitoring, like you just showed, like every month monitoring how the glacial lake is reacting to whatever climate change is happening, whatever small changes every time it's happening, and then able to report on like aid in this. So I think community level participation and how they can actually do it.
That's a wonderful question, ma'am, because we shouldn't keep discussing all these things with us. We should tell the common people, perhaps, who will get impacted by disaster. And all studies, not even one exception, has shown that it's the poor and the weaker and the disadvantaged communities that basically live on the hills with not much resources. They are the ones who are deeply impacted with disasters. So there is a system of mock drills, like the Disaster Management Act 20 years ago provided for the NDMA, and then there are state disaster management authorities, and then there are district disaster management authorities. So we keep doing mock drills, fire drills, or if there is a chemical plant in one town, so then there will be a chemical drill. There are various other drills. So there's a mock drill also that happens. So in Sikkim, in the downstream part of that South Logan Lake, just 2 months before we had done a mock drill. However, that mock drill was in 2 villages. But then in small places, the message does go. So what happens is that we made a system all over the country where there is a disaster space, a sensitive place where hazards are around, like earthquake and all that. So there's a whole system of sirens. So sirens, and there's a little control room that is informed immediately, and the sirens go off. So people know that there's a bit of a problem, so move to higher places. So in Sikkim, we didn't lose so many people because of those sirens. And the death toll was quite high, it was 100 plus. However, it could have been much more if those sirens hadn't gone off. And the ITBP had a post just 6 kilometers downstream. So they had manually seen, so they became a manual warning system. And they had immediately wired that this is what happened when people were born in the industry. But yes, early warning system, dissemination to the communities is a very serious, very big issue. We have done a lot of work. I would say 30, 40, 50% of the work is done. But that remaining 50% has to be taken to happen. Thank you for your question. So I guess now we can thank you.
Rizvi, I think just to supplement your answer to her, and maybe for the benefit of others, I can add on. Permit me.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, I introduce myself. So currently I am the senior DDG with the Ministry of Communications. Since Madam has did a wonderful part, because we are discussing technology, investments and everything, but whatever the person is directly going to be impacted and how he can be a partner with the entire process. So as you were mentioning, primarily the first requirement for them is to have the information dissemination systems. So I want to congratulate the NDMA team, which has spent a lot of money and lot of research has gone. Now there is a integrated information dissemination platform for disasters, whether they are man-made or natural. And in this process, people will get, these all are linked, some are maybe under linking. Any kind of the disaster, if the sensors are providing the information, that comes to the C.Central platform. And then the information is being dissemination on the broadcasting, so you will get on the radios, I should say the normal radio, what we use to listen, all the TV channels, you will get even on the respective platforms of the stations if something is going to happen on that route. Information is getting passed on to all your DTH if the person is not connected on the normal channels. So all the direct to home connectivity there. You will get the mass messaging on the mobile phone. So I think nowadays dissemination is taking shape and a lot of good work has been done. And I think we should all congratulate the team of the NDSA and the NDMA, which is spending a very high amount. And in this entire process, everything is indigenous. It's not that we are dependent and it cannot be done. And of course, I think the vision comes from the all people like him and we discuss, and the inputs comes from the person like him. Thank you. Just to add.
Thank you, Sharma. This is going to be very unprecedented session. Sorry for that. We have the presence of Dr. Pawan as GOC induction, and he has to say a few words. So, please, sir.
I didn't want to extend it, I just said something. The thing is, wherever all these challenges are occurring in the border areas, there is army. So the army has to be integrated, which I think an exercise which the NDMA is doing, and General Ahsan. I am based in Chennai, we had a cyclone, we were the first responders in Chennai, and all that saving was done. So the Indian Armed Forces, because Indian Navy, because they are the first responders for such situations, have to be part of the NDMA. And since the mic is with me, as far as the scaling and other things which were concerned, that the amount is less and they will not be scaled. Why can't this be given out as not as products but as services? So these services of detecting change in pattern and other things can be used by the defense also by so many other agencies. So instead of ordering a thing, you can order the services of the companies who can give you on required basis the data and the analytics for any change detection which is happening in such areas. Thank you.
Thank you. So quickly to, thank you for the point that you made. There are so many points to make, and then that whisper scared me so much. So security forces, as in the army, in the hills, the ITBP, the CPMF, the police, the NDRF, SDRF, these teams work like 24/7. They instantly reach in the mountains. The amount of work the army does when they immediately reach is unbelievable. If just cannot even write about it. There's so much to do. And we have one of our 3 members is, as you mentioned, General Ahsan. So he runs basically does all the mock drills now. He's a very active man. So you must be meeting him regularly. So that is the response part. So that is one part of those 5 parts that I mentioned in the beginning: prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, rehabilitation. Response is the most flamboyant to be seen, but as the gentleman mentioned, prevention and mitigation is the most important, so that you don't have to spend money after the disaster, so that you don't lose lives. So all 5 have to be looked at. This part, the role that security forces play, the army plays cannot be praised enough. As for the point made by Sir over here, the former DG SIA, I should have also mentioned, but again, one of the 57 points I did not make is the fact that we have a system called CAP, the Common Alert Protocol. So the Common Alert Protocol goes to those SMSs, those phones which are in the vicinity of a cyclone track, as informed by IMD. IMD will tell you about the track after assessing satellite imagery from ISRO, after looking at ground level data coming from its sensors, and all the ships and buoys it has in the ocean through another agency called INGOAS. So it connects all these to a supercomputer, and in like minutes, it is able to give a cyclone track which goes to the district magistrate, and then in that region, an automatic alert goes from us, from the CAP system. No manual intervention, it just goes to every mobile phone in the area. However, when there's a disaster, there will be no mobile phone. So that is what we are talking about when Dr. Aggarwal is telling us, that you need to have the eyes in the sky with sat phones based on Indian communication technology. Similarly, there is a thing called ERSS, Emergency Response Service Scheme. So your 112 number comes from ERSS from NDMA. So 112 is something that everybody calls now. So that is a consumer to government number, whereas the CAP system is from government to consumer. So both ends have been met. However, there are hundreds of things. Inside we keep fighting all the time. We are like a fish market, but outside we look very nice and very friendly. So the fish market is trying its best to take things forward in a much better way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for an insightful and highly informative session. I would like to call upon Dr. Subbarao to kindly come and felicitate all the 3 speakers. May I have Dr. Subbarao here on the stage, please? Shri Safi, Ahsan, Rizvi. Dr. S.P. Aggarwal. And Mr. Vibhore Sharma. Well, with this, we come to the end of highly insightful session. We can have one group picture, all 4 of you together. Thank you very much, gentlemen, all the audience. I'd like to call upon Shri Pawan Kapur, Board Member, SIA-India, for the closing remarks. And with this, we come to end of the day 1. May I have Shri Kapur here on the stage, please?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The last session of the evening, that is more of just concluding the transactions which have taken place today. and the deliberations. What I would say was, it was a day of very eventful thing where 3 chairmen got together today for the opening session, where SI has brought in the bridging the broadband facilities to satellite. There was ISRO chairman, there was InSpace chairman, and there was DRR chairman. And each one of them, and then of course we had the Australian High Commissioner, and on behalf of SI, Dr. Rob was representing us over there. And then we had the gentleman Air Vice Marshal from the Air Force, and Deepak Mathur from SES, who's a practical professional running satellite industry, the space communication. So one would wrap up very quickly. What Dr. Rao said was that how India can become a global hub of manufacturing. And this is a challenge which we are facing in all manufacturing industries, that yet it has to pick up. But space technology, it appears, might become the forefront for this. And this is what we are looking at. SI has already signed MOUs with the SIA Australia, and many more collaborations are on the way. So, secondly, where it came was that where the new technologies will come from. In India, where the R&D is yet too slow, wherever we are discussing, in all basic industries, the R&D is too slow. But here, the economy scale has to come up to catch up with the investments required for the R&D. And this is where the challenge, where it was coming from, is that ISRO and DRDO are there to support. And the chairman again spoke about that ISRO is working for both providing the technology, collaboration, as well as for humanity. That is the space exploration. DRI chairman spoke on the connectivity, how we can get connected to the remote places. There definitely the challenge is going to come. In our country, the R2 is rather low. It's little over $2, and at the most $2.5 for the highest R2 earning telecom operator. So this is, and going to the remote places, it is going to be a big challenge where the R2, where the 200 million customers are yet without data, and from where and how much usage they will have. In the urban area, we are having 25 gigabits usage per month. But over there, where the disposable income is less, that is going to be a new challenge. Then it comes for the Air Vice Marshal, which he spoke was that the war capabilities desire much faster R&D, although ISRO and DRDO is supporting. So the whole construction is coming to where how this industry is going to take off, and what will be the revenues, and what will be the gestation period, and during that gestation period, how will the industry survive, and all the technologies are given, which are breakthrough technologies. So, but where one sees the light is, I remember I've been with Bharti Airtel. This was in 1999. We had a management meeting where there were just 12 of us. Sunil Mittal heading, including his two brothers, and another 8-10 of us, including Akhil Gupta. And that time, the biggest vision came was that when we touched 5,000 crores, and that time it was about $1 billion US, the relation. And if that is achieved, we would have achieved the highest speed. And you see how the transformation took place, where the mobility is gone. Today that company is worth $125 billion US, one of the topmost companies in a single company in valuation. So this is where possibly the space industry is looking up, and with the enormous opportunities which we have, we can, where I would see is Dr. Robbins completely pinpointed that let's have the manufacturing along with the services. Now comes where I was quoting was Bhati Airtel, they had never thought that they will be making such big profits out of GPU innovation, invention of GPU and a background chip. Other day I was reading that they themselves were shocked, the management and the board of directors, that where they have reached. So there are two elements which I say in this industry. There is performance and ambition. If the performance is less than ambition, there is disappointment. But if the performance crosses ambition, then it is a prosperous industry. Today there was also deliberation on integration of mobile and terrestrial and satellite communication. This is a big challenge because mobility has got over 1 billion customers. How the standards are going to be set, how the devices are going to be commonality, this is what is to be worked out. And if this is achieved, at least the private sector will get an opportunity to raise their revenues immediately. In the sense of defense application, we have got two generals sitting over here, General Pawan, who is part of SIA. He says there is huge opportunities, lot of opportunities, but how we have to gather all the elements and bring it on the table. And that is where SIA is working on. And we are diligently working in that direction, where we get the technical expertise, where we get the investments, and how we bridge all this, where all the bodies are included, which is whether it is R&D, laboratories, ISRO, DRDO, IITs, analysts. We are bridging with investors, actual users, customers, industry. So this is where SIA is bringing this on the table. So with this, I thank you very much for the evening, because now the gathering is very thin. Otherwise, I would have scored a little bit more. But we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the first day. Okay, and I think we are just going to please be settled back tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and other exciting sessions are waiting for you. So everyone, I will see you back home, and please be back tomorrow.